Welcome to the complete guide for Viscous and Deadlock, or as some like to call them, Flubber. If you're someone who's been watching this channel for some time, then you know I primarily have been making Apex content, but I just want to take a quick second and say this channel has and always will be about games that I enjoy. So hopefully you enjoy a little switch up to Deadlock content. Let's get started with the abilities. But before I jump in, I just want to make a quick note that this is as of the patch on September 18th, 2024. The first ability is Splatter. You can shoot out a ball of goo that does damage when you hit a player and leaves behind a puddle of goo that applies a movement slow to enemies as they go through it. The base values are a 5-meter radius, 21-second cooldown, leaves a puddle for 10 seconds, and does 100 damage. As you collect souls and unlock additional tiers, these values change slightly. Tier 1 reduces the cooldown by 5.75 seconds, Tier 2 adds 70 damage and 1 meter of radius, and Tier 5 gives 2 bounces to the splatter. I just threw a ton at you. Keeping up? Cool, me either. Basically, you get more goo that's bigger, hits harder, and comes faster. Awesome. The final tier is an extremely fun part that allows you to be creative with the kit, but I'll get more into that later. Ability 2 is the cube. You can encase the target, you or a teammate, in a cube of restorative goo that purges, debuffs, protects from damage, and increases health regen. You can't do anything else while in the cube. Base values are a 48-second cooldown with a 4-second duration, but you can cancel at any point in time within that 4 seconds. Tier 1 increases movement speed and stamina regen. Tier 2 reduces the cooldown by 21 seconds. And Tier 3 regenerates 60 more HP. Simple terms, the cube protects you and your teammates.
Say that. Oh.
Why are you cubing me?
Well, it helps most of your teammates. It can create good opportunities for escapability, as well as baiting out enemy abilities and fights for momentum shifts. Ability 3 is Puddle Punch, my personal favorite part of the kit. Materialize a fist that punches units in the area and sends them flying. Also, it's hilarious. Enemies will be dealt damage, have their dash distance reduced for a brief moment, and have their movement slowed. An important note is that this is considered a light melee attack, which we'll discuss a little more later. Base values are a 4-meter radius that can be deployed up to 40 meters away, 30-second cooldown, 4-second movement slow duration with a 20% movement slow speed, and 69 damage. Nice. Tier 1 gains 1 additional punch charge, Tier 2 gains 35 damage and adds an additional 20% movement slow, and Tier 5 reduces the cooldown by 12 seconds. There's a lot here to digest. So, directly put, you can make a fist form off of any object, street, walls, cars, you name it. I like to say the punch giveth and the punch taketh, but again, we'll get into that more later about how it can giveth and taketh. But what you really need to understand is when you hit these punches, it does a bunch of slowing, does damage, and so much more. The final ability is Goo Ball. Morph into a large goo ball that deals damage and stuns enemies on impact. Again, this will have you dying laughing while causing chaos. The ball grants large amounts of bullet and spirit resist, bounces off walls, and can double jump. Base values are a 95-second cooldown, 1-second stun duration, 1.25-second stun frequency cooldown, adds 70% of spirit resist and 60% bullet resist while doing 140 damage. Tier 1 adds 5-second duration to the ball. Tier 2 adds 120 damage. And Tier 5 allows you to cast abilities and use items while rolling. If you haven't gotten the picture yet, you turn into Flubber in ball form and cause chaos. It's the perfect amount of destruction and silly. That's why we play video games, isn't it? An important note to Viscous's kit is that he can actually increase damage with spirit items for Splatter and Goo Ball at 1.5 times and 1.3 times respectively. We'll get into this a little more when we discuss build, but those two abilities can be improved with purchases in the shop. Now, there's one last little piece, and that's the base stats for Viscous. And this is important for every character, but I just want you to have an understanding of Viscous's base stats because it will help you as you create builds for yourself and understanding what we're doing when we're using items from the shop. His health is 550 with 2 HP regeneration per second. The gun does 13 damage with a 2 times multiplier to headshots, has a magazine size of 20, and shoots 5 bullets per second. Light and heavy melee damage is 63 and 116 respectively. As you collect souls and level up, bullet damage increases by 1.1, melee damage increases by 3.4, and health increases by 38. The gun is above the increase of most other heroes, while the melee and health increases are in line with other heroes. So why does this matter? All of these are levers you can pull for heroes to build your perfect creation. As we move forward, we're going to discuss how you can use the shop to create a playstyle even flubber with it. So let's get into it. I want to discuss Viscous in two scenarios, since this is, after all, a MOBA using the laning phase and the mid to late game for playstyles. They do blend together, but I want you to understand the value your abilities have to create powerful play at every point in a match. I'd strongly recommend you purchase your Splatter ability to start the game, as it can help you take away playable space, poke damage your enemy, finish off a low HP enemy around a corner, and give you an advantage in outmaneuvering your enemy to collect more souls. Follow Splatter up with the Cube to get convenient heals, remove debuffs from annoying characters like a Beat Bop Bomb, and create outplay opportunities in fights with 4 seconds of being impervious for you and your teammate. Obviously, you'll next unlock the Puddle Punch for further poke in lane and some fun movement to get out of a bad situation, and finish off with your Goo Ball. Quick note, if you are handily winning your lane, getting Puddle Punch may be your second unlock, as it can confirm souls and give more opportunity to suppress your enemy. There are 2 ways to level up your early game abilities. The standard tier 1 across the board for a balanced approach, or rush all of your souls to get your Splatter, Puddle Punch, or Goo Ball to level 5 as quickly as possible, depending on the build you end up going with. Personally, I think rushing Splatter to level 5 is important, as farming souls with the 2 bounces is valuable and can help you scale up the rest of your abilities more quickly. Breaking this down, I rush level 5 Splatter, then Goo Ball to level 5 as quickly as possible while getting my Puddle Punch and the Cube to level 2. Then doing Puddle Punch to level 5 first, since the cooldown reduction is more valuable than additional 60 HP. All of this is to say that you may want to consider rushing based on the part of your abilities you're focusing for your builds. As you get into the mid to late game, this is where Viscous gets extremely fun and chaotic. You have so much goovement opportunity. Yes, I meant to say goovement. You have your Puddle Punch and Goo Ball to quickly take space. The outplay potential with both is limitless, but more on this in a minute. First and foremost, you'll want to use your Splatter to clear waves and jungle camps quickly. The 2 bounces will allow you to hit structures and do damage twice to speed up the process. When it comes to fighting, you can bounce the Splatter off objects to push the enemy back, slow down enemies jiggle peeking a corner, clear an angle, and create a strong entry for you and your team. This ability can do damage as your power scales and stop enemies from fleeing with the movement debuff. The Cube is pretty self-explanatory. Yes, it's your get out of jail free card for you, but don't forget you can help swing the momentum of a fight for your low HP characters, or if you see the enemy freely wasting strong abilities like Warden's Biting Word, Ace's Bullet Dance, Moan Pearl's Combo, and so many more abilities that can be interrupted or evaded for the duration. Now this is where things start to get fun and silly. The Puddle Punch can help you poke players in lane, confirm souls when low, clean up a fight when they're running away, knock enemies out of the pit while they're trying to get the Rejuvenator from mid-boss, and get those pesky Gray Talons and Vindictas out of the sky. There's nothing more hilarious than trapping an enemy running from a fight with never-ending Puddle Punches. If Viscous's left fist was the hilarious part, the right fist is the first part of the goovement possibility. You can hit yourself with the punch to get out of a bad situation or into a good situation faster. Hit your teammates to push them out of harm's way if the Cube is on cooldown, and even get over something like McGinnis's wall with a jump dash. There are some who have even managed to chain them together for insane movement, but I am just simply not that talented of a gamer. A lot has been covered, but I want you all to recognize this is where true silliness and flubber comes out to play. The Goo Ball is here. If you have not seen flubber, don't worry. You can see yourself roll around in goo form, causing real chaos and destruction in game. You can chase your enemies down to ensure they don't get away, unleash havoc within a Kevin ultimate, that's your real playground, and even combine a Puddle Punch or Warp Stone with the ball for some unpredictability. Now, I'm legally obligated to remind you that it can also get you out of a bad situation, since you can quickly get out and take less damage. So I guess if I'm going to go ahead and remind you of that, then it's also worth mentioning that you can kite the enemy back to your team and then cause more havoc that the world has not seen since Miley Cyrus on a wrecking ball. All this to be said, there's so much goovement opportunity and chaos and destruction that can be caused with your Goo Ball. It is now time to discuss builds for Viscous. These items are all levers you can pull to create the flubber of your dreams, just like Robin Williams would have wanted. Let's break them out by each item type and value. I'm not going to go through and create a specific build for you. I more so want to introduce you to the different items that are levers you can pull to pair well with Viscous's abilities. So let's get into the weapon options. Now, you can do some really fun gun builds with Viscous, but I just want to focus on the items that you're most typically going to see run with Viscous. Now, in the 500 section, it's the early game. So most often you're going to see some form of these, maybe a couple of them, but often the high velocity mag, primarily to help you confirm souls and even hit people extremely hard after puddle punching them and giving them a movement slow. In the 1250 or so the early mid game, Soul Shredder bullets are something you'll see a lot of because it amplifies your spirit damage and grants you spirit lifesteal against your enemies. So this is something, as you get into the game and do lots of spirit damage, this can recompound very well. In the 3000, oftentimes you'll see point blank run. When you're in close range, you obviously going to want to hit very hard and have movement slow. If you think about Viscous and his abilities, well, close quarters combat is your friend. In the frivolous late game options, Spiritual Overflow is extremely fun. It grants you bonus spirit power by charging up with your bullets on enemy heroes. So as you do more damage and you pull out your spirit options, man, it can get pretty crazy. Next up, we've got Vitality. So I want us to focus on our early game options for a second. They're quite similar to most builds you'll see for most heroes. But the melee lifesteal, a fun little note here is that the Puddle Punch can actually work with this melee lifesteal to get you a little bit of HP back, which can be extremely beneficial, especially in early game. The next up, we've got our mid game. It's primarily our armors and situational items like Keelbane if you're dealing with tanks and leechers, and debuff reducer if you're dealing with an Infernus over and over and over. But you've got your cube, so these are more situational than anything else. In the 3000 section, again, very situational, but I want you to look at the rescue beam. This can be very, very nice if you're playing more of a support Viscous, and sometimes it's not talked about quite enough how much Viscous can help their team in sustainability. The last ones, we've got really some exciting stuff: Leech, Soul Rebirth, Colossus, Phantom Strike, and Unstoppable. Now, a lot of these you'll see in quite a few builds around all the different heroes, but Colossus is one that I really like because you gain bullet and spirit resist, which can stack very well with your Goo Ball, and then you also grow your model size by 20%. Just think of the chaos that you can cause. Finally, we've got our spirit options. Now, this is going to be extremely full for obvious reasons. Two of Viscous's abilities pair extremely well with spirit items. Now, Spirit Strike is one you'll see often since the Puddle Punch is a light melee, but I really like Mystic Burst because you can deal bonus spirit damage if you deal 80 damage or more in a single hit. Think about how often this happens, especially with something like, well, the Splatter. In the mid game, early game, the 1250 options, there's quite a few good ones here, but I really like Bullet Resist Shredder. It reduces bullet resist on enemies when you deal spirit damage. Obviously, if you're going to have bullet resist on your enemies when you deal spirit damage, think about how much of your kit does spirit damage. Well, high correlation here. In the mid game, there's quite a few fun ones here. Obviously, the Surge of Power can be extremely good for you, but I like Superior Cooldown. Think about how many of your abilities are going to be active more often and how much spirit damage you can output with a lower cooldown. For me, this is a no-brainer. And in the final section, we've got Boundless Spirit. This is one that you will need to be building up throughout the game, but there's just so much improvements to your overall kit. I personally like Divine Kevlar. Upon casting an ultimate ability, gain temporary bullet shield, spirit shield, and spirit power. Well, think about this. You're already in a ball. You have bullet and spirit resist, plus you have a shield, and now you have additional spirit power. You can absolutely go crazy here, and I love it. All right, that is it for me for today. I hope you enjoyed this guide. It is my first one I've made on Deadlock, so obviously feel free to let me know if you think I'm an idiot, you enjoyed it, whatever it may be. Honestly, I can handle it. My goal is really just to improve and pass along good information. I obviously try to keep things fairly high level and give you the foundational information without doing a real advanced guide. I just wanted a complete guide for you, and I hope you enjoyed. That's it for me today. My name is My Day Job. If you enjoyed, consider liking, subscribing, commenting, doing all the things, but I'll leave that up to you. I'll catch you guys next time.